Welcome to another episode of the Low Point Podcast, where we use the 5 pillars of better golf to help golfers unlock the next level of their game. I'm Ryan, here with my co-host Nik, and we understand that every good swing and every golfer's journey has a low point. Today, we recap the 5 pillars of better golf and our goals for the year, before discussing Nik's recent rounds at Rustic Canyon and Torrey Pines. Nik also reveals his latest focus, the Anti-Handicap. Later, I recap my first round back in 5 months and my adjustment to North Carolina golf. Let's jump in. Why don't we just start with the goals? Just kind of recap the goals we established 2 episodes ago. I've been thinking about them a little bit more. Or I guess the goals, yours is a handicap goal primarily, and mine is not. But let's just kind of, I don't know if you want to comment on your goal. Restate it. Yeah. Revise it even. I'll allow you to revise it.
I'm going to try to stick to it because I feel like a part of this is really stick-to-itiveness. But so my goal is really largely to cut my handicap in half, which it seems ambitious because going from 16 to 8, there's a lot of things that need to go right. But the genesis of the goal is that I feel like I've just been a 16 my whole life. And I've kind of I've been playing around golf. I don't think I've really been playing golf, because to suggest that you're playing golf means that you're taking into consideration all of the facets of the game, including strategy and mental fortitude and a lot of things that I think if you're just a casual golfer, you tend to be a little bit more lax about. So I think what I'm trying to do is be more conscientious about incorporating those aspects of my game so they become second nature, so that by the end of the season and into next season, I'm playing the way an 8 handicap would play, but still enjoying my rounds of golf, which I think a lot of listeners would certainly relate to. Is just, I want to get better. I don't necessarily want to throw out the fun I have, because I don't want golf to become overly serious, but at the same time, how do I ingrain better habits? Using our 5 pillars to just have better intuition on the golf course.
Yeah. And those 5 pillars, we'll just recap real quick, are the physical, the equipment. I'm trying to go in your order of
mental,
mental. There you go. Mental, practice, and strategy. Those are the 5 pillars. So we'll try to touch on those as much as possible as we go through this.
Totally.
Got it. What about you, Ryan? What were you on that?
No, I think I have a pretty basic goal this year. I think it's just get better, finally get into the single digits. If I don't hit 8, at least if I can break into the high 9s, I think that would be a huge accomplishment, and just really feel like I can I feel like I have the game to get there. It's just a question of putting it all together on the golf course.
Yeah. That makes sense. And so for my goals, I was talking about primarily health. I talked about this hip mobility issue that I've got, that I've been working on it, and I've seen some good progress here. But what I stated before is my goal is not necessarily a handicap goal this year. One, because, I just moved across the country playing golf in North Carolina. I need to get to know a lot of new courses. It's a different style of golf out here, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. And I'm just not sure I have the time or the structure right now, as I figure out my new life in a new area, to really focus on what I need to get, below a 5. So I think the health piece for me is a major part of being able to make swing changes to get me down to scratch. So it's more, this year is almost a setup year for next year in my eyes. So it's more about that around the health side and getting to know North Carolina golf. I think I need to balance that with getting to know a couple of courses so that I do understand where my game is at going into next year. But for the most part, just get around the region and understand what's it like playing with all these trees, which is different than Southern California. There are a number of elements like that.
And I love this duality that we have, where it's my goal is very score driven and very handicap driven, and yours is a lot more holistically driven. I actually like that, because I think it's easy for sometimes to just build golf goals the way I've sort of built mine this year, which is I want to score X, I want to get to handicap X, but it's very linear to think that way. I think what you're trying to go after is a more holistic approach around, enjoying the game a lot more. And I think that you don't necessarily have to find a number in order to enjoy the game more. You can really just feel like you're in better health and you're enjoying the courses you're traveling to, or you can leverage things like strategy or the mental part of the game to keep yourself at a 5, even if you don't have the physical capabilities you once had, or the familiarity with the courses to execute the way you would on a course you played 50 times before. So I like the sort of differences we have in our goal structure.
Yeah, and I think there's almost an overarching time management component. I know one of the things we've talked about is how do we balance this, like our journeys with our, family life and work life responsibilities and such. But I think like one of the things that you really have to get down in order to even get to a single digit is really how do you structure your time to take advantage of some of these elements, like or your take advantage is the wrong phrasing. But how do you to chip away at certain things, right? So you're going to have to get from a 16 to an 8. Like there's a lot of practice in something like that for the most part, right? Like you're going to have to figure out, where does my strategy planning time fit into this? Where does my practice fit into this? Where does my playing time fit into this? And I think the work that I've put in over the past few years, and we can have an episode that like where I do a deep dive on some of this too, on like my own personal journey. But I think like I have like a known rhythm to try to attach to. I think one of the things for me is that I know that I haven't played golf in 5 months until this past Saturday. So I know that I don't have the rhythm. And I know that in order to perform at that, 5, even a 5, like stay at a 5, like I have to get back to that rhythm, and I have to make sure that I'm executing on some things that I just haven't even thought about for 5 months. I just know it's not realistic in the short term, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to get there because I've not been a 5 for very long. So like for me, that's me kind of understanding the limitations of the setup for my year as well.
Yeah. But do you feel like there are certain like tangible goals that you should set, like tangible goals you should set for yourself that would indicate how far along, like how much progress you've made towards those goals? Or is it enough? You'd mentioned like you want to play a bunch of courses. So is there a certain number you have in mind, or is there a way for you to feel like, even though you're not trying to shoot a certain handicap, but say, okay, well, if in this off year or setup year, to use your words, as long as I don't go above a 6.5, like I feel like that's a win. Like, how are you going to track your progress?
Well, right now, I'm just trying to set a baseline. I don't know what it looks like to be a 5 and take 5 months off. Like, and, I found out a little bit this past week, but for the most part, that's one data point. So I think the next couple of weeks are going to be an understanding of where I'm at. And then I can come up with some goals from there that I think will be reasonable. I set a course goal this year for 15, like play 15 new courses around this area. I put 15 because I think there's about that many courses within a 30 to 45 minute drive. So I think that's a little bit more reasonable. We'll see if I decide it's 15 new courses this year anywhere or just in North Carolina. Yeah, I know we have a trip coming up. So, I may decide to add that to this total. We'll see how the year goes.
Got it. Okay. No, I like that. I like having something to hold you accountable to.
Yeah, absolutely. I at this point though, sometimes you just have to figure out where you're at first. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, but
Should we get into the golf?
Yeah. Let's get into the golf. You have had a lot going on in your golf life since our last sit down recording. So I know you had a round at Rustic Canyon that we talked about.
Yep.
Why don't we just start there?
Yeah. So Rustic is sort of my home course, if you could call it that. It's 20 minutes from the house. It's a great Gil Hans designed public course here in the northern suburbs of Los Angeles. I would say that, to quickly summarize, I think the round went really, really well. I broke 90 with an 88. That's the first time I broke a 90 at Rustic in some time. And I do believe that a large part of that was crediting to a belief around having a strategy, having the mental fortitude, and then practice. So starting with practice, because it's probably the easiest thing. I think I said on either the last episode or the episode before that I was trying to get in 2 hours of long game practice, 1 hour of short game practice in per week. I definitely was able to stop by the driving range, even if it was in 30-minute increments on my way home, just to hit some balls. Like even if it was 30 balls, it was still better than nothing, and still just sort of locked in sort of key muscle memory for me. Short game probably fell short of my hour goal for the week, but still I think progress is progress in that regard, and still better than zero. But that practice was really centered around like ball striking with my irons. I'd been doing a lot of the sort of hip high backswing to hip high follow through type of drill, just to get the feel of the club coming in through impact, getting a good feel off the club, getting the start line correct for my desired shot shape, and spending about like 50% of my practice time really focused on that drill and getting to a place where, I'm feeling better about my iron striking. We'll talk about that a little bit later, because I feel like my iron striking kind of let me down a little bit in some of the rounds I had, but I'll hit on that later. So from a practice element, like definitely felt good going into Rustic. Started off kind of the way I always kind of start off, which is the first hole, approachable par 5, but I tend to hit it right, and then am flirting with danger on the right hand side. I mean, it's a native area, so you can typically find your ball. So that's kind of what happened. I hit it in the native area, pitched it out, but then still felt the resolve that I could get home with a bogey. And so I think that was like the common theme throughout the round, was really just like knowing that even if I'm in trouble, I can get out of this and I can still manage a score and try to put myself in the best position to minimize damage. So after pitching out, I hit like a 3-wood to the left side of the green where there's tons of space. I didn't try to go for the pin, even though I felt like, I got to hit a green, get a green regulation. Like, no, like just get it to a safe place where you can, chip and putt. And so that was really the strategy throughout the entire round. Whenever I found myself in trouble, I really just try to be like, okay, where's a conservative place to miss where I could just minimize the damage on the next shot? And then the other part of the strategy was that when I had an opportunity to sort of score, I really took advantage of that opportunity. So on the third hole, which is a short par 4, I had a decent 3-wood, left myself about 65 yards in, hit a nice little flippy wedge, maybe like 18 feet short of the pin, but really spend my time walking around the green, watching other putts from the other players I was playing with, really understanding the breaks and the nuances, and then, drilled that 18-footer, which is like not a short putt by any respect, right? So I think capitalizing on moments where I had an opportunity to score was really, really important, and this belief that I could still make par from anywhere.
I think, when we talked about it, the big thing for me is that you had a strategy and you mentally hung in there to take advantage of it. I think for me, you describing this round was more mental toughness than I think I've seen in person from you before. So that's a step in the right direction. I think you talked about, you kind of lost it for a second, but then you regained it. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So there was a point on the back nine where there were 2 holes that I had sort of circled. And anyone who's familiar with the course, it's holes 12 and 13, which is a short par 4 followed by a pretty short par 5 that's very open and very gettable. You don't have to get there in 2 to get birdie on this hole. I hit an okay tee shot off of 12, not my best, but hit a chip that sort of rolled away off the green. It's as typical with short par 4s, if it's a short par 4, typically the green's pretty tricky. So hit a chip, rolled off the green. It was like a foot, like maybe a yard away from being great. Hit another chip, didn't go so well, and then ended up doubling. Like it was just like, it was a total meltdown of a hole where, again, maybe that time practicing my short game would have helped me out a little bit.
That hole though is it's such a temptation hole, right? Because the green it's not that far away. I don't know the full yardage, but it plays downhill from the tee. And the fairway is so wide, but the way it tricks you is the green's tucked left and it's OB left, right? And then like everything moves away from you. Like there are very few greens in golf, I feel like, where the green breaks away from you on the approach shot. And here there's a ridge where you can kind of catch it, but it's so tricky to get the distance control right. And it's so wide open the entire hole that it tempts you to be too aggressive, right? And then it can just bite you. So it's and when it does, you can get in a bad position, like you said, and then you have one bad chip, and all of a sudden it's a double bogey.
Yeah, it's almost a situation where like you kind of, unless you got your distances really dialed in with your wedges, you kind of want to leave yourself a full shot. But I feel like landing it anywhere on that green is actually tough because, to your point, there's actually bunkers on the left too that sort of like can catch your ball if it veers a little bit left. And then everything runs left to right on that green, and they tend to put the pin on the left side. So like you kind of need to go towards the left of the green, because even if you hit it on the center, there's a chance it rolls off and then rolls down a little catch area, which is really annoying to chip from because it's super tight. But it's actually sneaky hard. Yeah, you're right. It is. I always circle it as like a scoreable hole just because it's a short par 4. But the green makes it par a good score on that hole for sure.
Yeah.
But I think then quickly to summarize 13, because I don't take too much time on that, is I sort of was I was fuming after like 12, hit a wayward tee shot that went right on 13, and then obviously had to take a drop. And so like, it's even though it was a par 5, I still didn't leave myself with enough opportunity to score on that hole either. And I think I ended up with another double or maybe even a triple on that one. And it was just frustration shot after frustration shot, like throwing the strategy playbook out the window, just sort of like playing with my emotions and just like smacking a ball because I wanted to try and smack it, which totally took me out of my rhythm and my swing. And it was just really, really bad. So getting up to the 14th tee, which is not an easy tee shot because it's a force carry of about 240 yards over a tree. It's pretty daunting if you don't feel like you have, your best driving game with you. We did have an opportunity to wait on the group ahead of us. And I think that wait actually gave me an opportunity to just take a deep breath, reflect, be like, okay, you still have a round going. You're still going to be okay. Just hit a good tee shot here and you can bounce back. And I ended up parring that hole. So like actually gave myself a look at 6 feet for birdie on that hole and missed it. But still like, that is not an easy hole to have a birdie look on by any stretch. So
totally
really that. And then after that, I felt like the ship sort of stabilized, and I think I bogeyed the next, parred the next, and then finished the bogey. So like it felt like a little bit of a righting of the ship after having a 2-hole spell where I just like completely lost it.
I love that. And I love your comment on the weight on the tee box being a benefit to you. Because like when you hear, like if you watch golf on TV and somebody loses it for a second, they'll talk about things moving really fast for them, right? And I think that's what happens when you're not playing well, especially if you're a person who's conscious of pace of play and like you're playing out there with people you may or may not know. You want to keep pace and you can kind of lose it real quick, right? Things move really fast. But I think what is interesting about what you described is you had a moment that forced you to pause. But to be a better player, I think one of the questions you have to ask yourself is how can you create those moments of pause for yourself that really don't take that long, right? And I think that's where people get into talking about meditation or focusing on their breath when they're nervous. How do you slow it down? How do you create that moment for yourself to reset? That's a skill.
Yeah, no, it is a skill. And obviously everyone wants to get there in a sense of like trying to have it only happen after a bad shot, because bad shots are inevitable, particularly at our skill level, right? Like even for the pros have bad shots, but then
it's all relative too, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But then they're able to reset, and then the next shot they make sure is not as bad. For me, I feel like it does compound very easily, and it's not until I've gone through 2 holes of feeling like, okay, what the hell's going on, that I catch myself. And we'll get to this a little bit. The same thing kind of happened to me on Torrey. It happens time and time again where it's not until I've had a hole or 2 holes, frankly, and I would love to get it back down to 1 hole where you have a blow up hole, next tee box, reset. Like that would be the next sort of goal for me in this regard, is just like, I can't assume that I'm just going to be able to totally reset after a bad shot, but certainly after a bad hole, it feels like, okay, you can just hit the reset button, right? This is your opportunity to do that. And I don't actually think, and last thing I'll say is, I don't think it's as easy as just sort of slowing things down and like taking a breath, because I've done that. Like I did, like, again, we'll talk about this at Torrey. I kind of did that at Torrey when I had a bad hole or a stretch of bad holes. And it just sort of made things worse when it didn't go my way. So like I tried to like take a deep breath, slow things down, focus on my like pre-shot routine, blah, 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 still hit a bad shot. And then that was just like, what the heck? Like, what am I supposed to do now?
Okay. Well, maybe it's because, I don't know, maybe because you're new to it, right? Like it could be a thing where like, the first time you try, I'm not saying it's the first time you've tried that, but like your brain doesn't trust itself at this point.
I think that's right.
So like you have to
subconsciously there's doubt. Subconsciously there's doubt. And even if you think, even if your conscious mind's like, no, we're going to like slow things down, And the subconscious, you're like, you just blew up the last 2 holes. Like, you need to, like, you suck at golf. Like, you need to learn how to, like, quiet that down.
Yeah. Cool. Well, tell me about Torrey. We spent a whole episode talking about this strategy. Did you remember any of it? Were there any themes you took with you?
So I think this maybe was, I don't know how evident this was when we did the recording, but I had a slightly different strategy than what we had actually like landed on. In that, like, there were certain holes where I thought should take 3-wood. You said, oh, I like prefer driver here. Certain holes where I circled and be like, oh, like pedal to the metal, like you should go for it. You said like, no, you like back off this hole. It's not that easy. I think like 14 was an example of that. So I would say that I generally followed the strategy. I think I started to listen to your strategy as the round went on, which is, again, terrible of me not to just take the advice of the expert in the room and just think that I know better.
Well, you have to play your game too, so I think there's a little bit of getting to know it. But I'm eager to hear more.
Let's start with the morning. So, because I think that it goes into like the physical and all that too. So I actually got lucky. I was there as part of a work conference, and there was a slot of tee times from 7 till 10 or something like that. And I got fortunate with like a 9:30 tee off time, so pretty late in the morning. So I was able to wake up at my regular time, 6 a.m., like get a workout in, which was actually huge because I don't always get an opportunity to get a workout in, but it just got the mobility going, got the blood flow going. Went to the grill, like sat down, had breakfast, didn't feel rushed at any point in the morning. Went to the range, hit a few balls, but not anything crazy. Yeah, it was the ideal morning. Like irons were feeling good, like driver was a little shaky, but whatever. Just trying to get into my rhythm, right? Getting into the round. Step up on the first tee box, hit a great first tee shot, which was a huge sign of relief because I was not hitting driver well on the range. But I went back to the drills and feels I had been working on, which was really like trying to get my hands inside my body and following through and having the butt of the club of the driver sort of finish in my front pocket. Like that is something I've been really working on. So not leaving the club face wide open and having those push slices that I suffer with. And I hit it great, like good distance down the middle, right side of the fairway, like great execution on the first shot of the day. Second shot, a little bit thin with the irons, left side bunker, but hit a great bunker shot to about 6 feet, missed maybe even shorter, 5 feet, 4 feet, missed the putt. Because one thing I did not do is putt on the practice greens, which again is something I need to work into my pregame routine. That was silly of me. And sorry, I should also mention this. They punched the greens 2 weeks before.
Okay.
So the greens were it was bumpy.
It was bumpy
sandy.
still. Yeah.
It was bumpy and sandy. So like, so again, I was there with a bunch of people. Everyone complained about not being able to hold a lot of putts. Like it was just not, I know Torrey's tough, but like it just wasn't really playing. It wasn't really super true. So anyways, so, whatever, misjudged it a little bit, but tap in bogey, not a bad score on the first hole, right? Because we talked about like first hole is actually a pretty tough
take a bogey.
Hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second hole, and I won't go shot by shot for the whole round, but I think the first couple holes sort of dictate this, and then I'll jump ahead. Again, trying to execute on the strategy here, felt that like didn't need, driver, which is we differed, right? You said you like taking driver, bombing it down the right side and still having an opportunity to get up from there. I didn't like that strategy. I wanted to be on, playing from the fairway on top of the hill as opposed to at the bottom of the hill. I hit a great 3-wood. It ran long into that left side bunker, left me with a tough lie. I banned it right with my second shot, but had a great lob shot in to get up and down for par. So
were you
no blood
short? Like where was your approach shot on that one?
Right. I went right of the green. Like right down almost. Yeah. Like down the hill, almost near like 4. Yeah. Like okay. I was pin high, but it went way right. And so it was almost down near the like 4 fairway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. But I hit a great blind shot to like, it was a long putt for par, but I made it.
Nice.
So yeah, it was like a 12 footer or something like that. But it was a great putt. Only long putt of the day. But then 3 comes up, which has always given me trouble. But it was a pretty friendly tee box. It was like the tee box that was sort of not at the top, but like down a little bit to the right, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Kind of all disaster breaks for this. I duffed my tee shot because I wasn't committed to my 9-iron. I was sort of in between an 8 and a 9, and it wasn't committed to the swing, and ended up duffing it. And then the next one over the green, triple. So not a great.
So you were between 2 clubs. You had the short of the club. All the trouble is long, and you didn't commit to the short club.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta. I mean, I think in that case, I would stick with the short club and just be like, I'm going to hit this solid and just like, that's going to be it. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to go back, but
was it just you were still indecisive? Like,
no, I actually think that it was a situation where I had too many swing thoughts, honestly. Because to your point, I kind of wanted to. I didn't swing free with the 9-iron. I was sort of like, all right, like you kind of need to hit this 9-iron solid. So I was like, all right, what do I have to do to hit an iron solid? I have to get my hand in this position. I have to turn this way, and it was just too many swing thoughts.
Yeah.
And then I did across over the green, which is a tough place to chip from. So then I chipped it and then ran all the way back to the other end of the green, and then a couple putts get me to a 6. So not a great place to be.
So when you said sticking to the strategy, I know like some of them were like T strategy on specific holes, but like, when you say you did or didn't stick to the strategy, what do you mean like thematically versus like a hole by hole piece?
So thematically, it was pick conservative targets with aggressive swings, know your miss, and just play to your misses. That was really the strategy going in.
Okay.
I didn't really have a strategy around putting as much, and frankly, I don't think it would have mattered just given the state of the greens. But like my strategy is, should always be, and you know this, Ryan, like I'm a very good putter. Like I feel very confident with the putter in my hand. I putt from 10 yards off the green if I want to. Like I know it like it's a safety club for a lot of people, but I actually view it more of like, this is my scoring club. Like this is like the way you feel about your driver. Like that's how you get strokes gained against people in your cohort. Like I feel that I am way better than the average 15 or 16 handicap at putting, and Arcos tells me that I'm right.
Right.
So it is anyways, my strategy was really just to pick the conservative targets with aggressive swings. Okay, but basically I hit this great stretch where we talked about this in the strategy podcast, where 11 through 14 is really, really tough.
Yeah.
But I go par 10, great bogey on 11.
That's a fun
great
score.
Great bogey on 12.
Nice.
Again, great score on that hole. 13, I par. I hit best drive I've hit in like a year.
I do want to hear about 13 because you were talking about how hard this hole is and all this.
Yeah.
And you made par. So how'd you make par?
I hit an absolute missile down the middle of the fairway.
Nice.
And then I actually had 240 in or 235 in, which is like a fairly comfortable distance for me with my 3-wood, thinking, it's a little bit downwind. I could hit it long, and it's totally fine. I can miss it like right and left and I'll feel fine. I just don't want to leave it short, basically. What I end up hitting is actually a short left shot. But I missed the bunkers. So took the opportunity to say like, okay, it's conservative in the sense that there's a lot of ways I can miss this and I can still get a green in regulation.
Yeah.
Assuming I don't end up in the bunkers. And I took an aggressive swing. It was almost a little too aggressive. And I just didn't make great contact, and I ended up short left. I hit a great, again, another thing that was just working for me that round was just like my 75 to 100 yard shots were just like great all around, maybe 50 to 90 to be a little bit more accurate. But those wedge shots I hit it again to like 8 feet, 2 putt for par. So like great feeling par on 13, which I think is a very difficult hole. 14, don't hit a great tee shot, and then I miss the green long and go over. So I lose a ball. Not great. 15, which is the easiest hole in the golf course, make a bogey. 16, make a great par. Bogey on 17, and then make a par on 18.
Nice.
So
that's
ended up with
great finishing stretch.
Back 943. So not that far off from my goal. So I ended up with the 92, which is still the best score I've shot at Torrey Pines South. So
that's solid.
How did this strategy work out? I think there was a point where I felt like the strategy was failing me, but then kind of just regripping on the mental side and just saying like, you can do this. Like you can just stick to the game plan and do what you know how to do best. Like swing aggressively at conservative targets and make your misses manageable. And that led me to, again, I didn't hit a 40, but whatever. I landed, shot for the moon, landed on the stars type of feel. So it was a great way to finish the round.
That's great. So you think the idea of putting constraints in and saying, I want to shoot this number on this 9, that gives me 4 strokes to work with. You think that helped you in this case?
I feel like it helped me get tighter on managing my mistakes. So if the goal is my goal is really just to like avoid double bogeys, right? Like we talked about, I had 4 doubles. I had 4 doubles on the front and a triple, right?
That's a lot of big numbers. Yeah.
I had one double on the back and no triples.
That's amazing. That's what you got to do.
Right. So that's what you got to do. You got to tighten it up. And this may not be the same for everybody, but for me, it was just saying like, I just don't have that much rope to play with. And so making sure that I was taking more calculated is probably the wrong word, because it wasn't like it was overly analytical, but it was because I'd done the strategy mapping before, but just taking the right risks at a course like that, where like, if you don't take the right risks and they don't pay off, then you're going to have a big score on any given hole.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So you had another round, right? Did you have one more round or two more rounds on this trip?
Yeah, I had one more round on that trip. It was at Del Mar Country Club. Fantastic place if you ever have the opportunity to play. Really cool golf course. Was not feeling great that morning. Again, it was a bit of a work boondoggle. So, and I had an earlier start time than I had the morning prior. So no workout, no real McDonald's drive-through breakfast, tale of two cities. A totally different story here.
Yeah.
Got there still feeling a little bit sleepy. Hit a few balls. Actually feeling pretty good on the range, whatever. And then step up to the first tee, hit a great tee shot. Just sort of feeling like I'm just in a sort of sleepy zombie phase, and actually pulled together a couple of good holes. I'm probably 3 or 4 over through the first 5. And then I start to actually wake up and I am not feeling great. And so, and not from it's not like I had a hangover or anything like that, but it was more just physically was not feeling great. I could just feel my body was not as loose as it was yesterday. It didn't feel as strong as it was yesterday. And I could tell from just the contact with my irons that my hips were just sliding all over the place. I was having so much lateral slide in my backswing that I just didn't have any consistency with my irons whatsoever. Still shot a 92 there, but playing from the tees we played from, I should have broke 90. It was not long. I think it was 6,000 yards, honestly. So I really should have broken it from the tees that we had. But again, just a lot of big numbers coming from not necessarily the tee shots were still a bit of a struggle on day 2, but it was really the irons that kind of saved me a little bit at Torrey were not there. And I feel like the margin of error with irons sometimes can be so small that you really want to feel that you have a strong approach game. And if I look at my strokes gained in the Arcos app for the second round, it was way worse than it was at Torrey. Yeah. And so that was really where I lost most of my strokes the second day, was just in my approach game.
Yeah, especially if you're hitting shorter clubs, and if the course is shorter, you're hitting shorter clubs in. If you're not hitting greens, that makes a ton of sense. Yep. Yeah. All right. So did you put your numbers in your handicap calculator?
I did. So it was starting to. So the 92 at Torrey was a 15-8 differential, so it didn't really move the needle that much.
But that's solid. You need those. You have to pack in the rounds that are at your current handicap, basically, and say these are the high rounds now.
Yeah, the round at Del Mar was a 20 differential, so didn't really help the handicap there. But again, obviously not going into the calculus either. So I think to the point, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast or if we just talked about it on a phone call, but I think the other thing that I'll probably be tracking as well is not just my handicap, but my anti-handicap. And I need to run the numbers with these last 2 scores, but I'm pretty confident that these 2 numbers are going to dramatically improve my anti-handicap, which was a 20.8. My hunch is that it's probably come down a full stroke or maybe a stroke and a half. So I think that's another great way to just manage your and track your progress, is just what's the dispersion of your scores look like from a differential perspective.
Yeah. I did this week at one point start putting together a spreadsheet for both of us so that we can share a Google sheet where we go through and we can track the anti-handicap in the same place. Because I think it's a good stat to keep, but it's kind of hard to keep it unless you have something that's going to do the calculations for you, because you have to find your high 8 and all that, right? You can do it. It's just a little bit of manual work. So if we have a spreadsheet to share, then you have to manually log your round, but I think it'll be fun as time goes by, because I'm focused on it for the opposite reason, because I am trying to see how much I can keep my handicap from going up, because I know it's going to go up because I haven't been playing, but we'll see what that ends up looking like.
Yeah. And anti-handicap again is just your 8. So if your handicap is your 8 best score or best differentials, average, your anti-handicap is your 8 worst. So trying to make sure that your bad rounds are not so bad and enjoying golf that way. I think it's actually almost a better measure of the enjoyment aspect of what we're talking about versus the improvement part.
It makes it easier to not make those really terrible decisions along the way too, right? When you really understand, like, you're not just playing for your best score ever, you're playing for not your worst
avoid the
score
worst
in the
score.
last 20 rounds, right? So
yeah,
awesome. Well, it sounds like it was a good trip, good couple of rounds there. I gotta say, what I'm looking at here, like the last two of those 3 rounds that you just described count towards your handicap, right? You had a 13.9 at Rustic and a 15.8 count towards your handicap, and at Torrey, like that's solid. Like if you can do that and start stacking the rounds that count in your most recent rounds, even if they're the same level as what your handicap is, like your future, it gives you a lot of room to run to adjust your
and sorry, I forgot to I forgot to mention, like I went from a 15.7 to a 15.2, so like a half a stroke improvement is still like pretty good.
There you go. We're on our way. As I'm looking at this, you only have one score that counts in your next 6 rounds, and that's a 14.8. So if you get one 14.8, then you're staying at the same level in your next 6 rounds. But I believe you can do better than that on more than one occasion. So.
Well, especially now with just like a better game plan and not going to just like go hit a golf ball. You're going to be a little bit more intentional around how you want to play the game from, the 5 aspects that we've talked about.
Certainly. Cool.
All right. So enough about me. Let's talk about your run. What you've been working on.
I played my first round of the year, first round since Thanksgiving. So that was a week ago. It was April 19th, I think. Played at the Duke University Golf Club. So probably its biggest claim to fame in recent memory, other than being the course that Duke University plays at. They played one of the final U.S. Open qualifiers there last year. And Harry Higgs
That was pretty
won
cool.
that one. Yeah, Harry Higgs won that one. I believe it was like a 7-person playoff, and it was all PGA Tour guys that you would know, right? Like some guys that you would know lost out to him there. So pretty nice course, good condition. The grass is starting to come in here. It's all Bermuda grass. Like it's like dormant and brown during the winter, but starting to come in a little bit. Still a little patchy, but it's early in the year. The course is a Robert Trent Jones Sr. design. It's been around for a while, so it's very walkable. It's created in a time where most people walked the golf course, which was nice because I like walking the course. I think this round is interesting from the perspective of, it's like, what does it look like for a 5 handicap to take 5 months off? And the answer is it doesn't look good. Like nobody would have thought that I played like a 5 as I go through this round. But I was also, walking. It was kind of like, what shape is my body in from a walking the course perspective? I've been working on my hip. What shape is my hip and all that. But I got to say that Robert Trent Jones Sr. has a little, it's not your Rustic Canyon. It's not even like a Torrey Pines. It's a very penalizing style of golf course architecture. And I had to learn a little bit about that. I've played some of his courses, or Junior, his son, or one of his 2 sons. I think Reese Jones is his son as well. So yeah. So I played some of those courses in the past, but that's not the predominant style of architecture in Southern California, and so I haven't played that really that much.
Well, you remember when I was at Calabasas, that was a Robert
yes.
Junior, actually. Robert Jones Junior course.
Yeah. So that one, and that was not a long course.
That was tough.
But it was very penalizing if you missed,
very
right?
penalizing.
Yeah. It was a challenging one. So got out there. I think, a couple of things I mentioned earlier, just understanding the difference of the style of course in North Carolina and learning to play with the trees. I felt really good going into this round. I was hitting it okay. My body was moving okay, but I just couldn't get off the tee well. I think I struggled.
And sorry, how much did you practice going into this?
I hit the range 2 weeks prior, was it, basically? And then I warmed up on the range here. That was pretty much it.
So not much practice and not much physical.
Not much practice, but the range session after not swinging a club for a long time went really well, and it went way better than I expected, and my body felt good, and that was the biggest thing that I I was worried about, it'd been a couple weeks. I didn't really have a lot of expectations. So I didn't know, I guess the big thing is I didn't know where the ball was going to go. And it showed. I hit a cut, and I am pretty okay with having a starting line that's way to the left, even to hit the center of the fairway, right? So the first fairway set up the opposite of what I would have wanted. It's a hole where you don't necessarily want to hit driver, because the end of the fairway on the right-hand side, there's a big berm, and it's a hill that goes down to the woods beyond that. So if you hit it too far to the right, you're in the woods, basically. So I tried to hit a 3-wood off the tee. I hit a push cut. So it went to the right. And even though I tried to play short of the berm, it landed on the berm, kicked further out. I found it. It was in the woods. I tried pitching back up. The berm was high. It's probably 15 feet high from where I ended it, at least. And I tried to punch a 4-iron under a tree branch up the berm. It just went around the berm like a skateboarder on a half pipe, kind of going around one side. Came back down. I was in the woods again. Ended up making double bogey on the first hole, but I was like, you know what? I'll take that. Double bogey, first hole back, all that.
Yeah, jitters. It's. Do you play with a breakfast ball when you haven't practiced?
No, never. I'm not that nice to myself, Nick. You know this. So, the second hole was similar, except this one I just pulled it, right? It was the opposite. I hit it straight, but it was straight down the left-hand side. It hit a tree 200 some yards down that side and dropped. I was next to the cart path. I had to take a drop from the cart path.
Your mind is just all over the place now.
A little bit. And I was I just didn't know where the ball was going to go. Even on the next shot I tried, there was a tree between me and the green, and I tried to kind of pitch it over to the right-hand side, and I pulled that and miraculously went through the tree, and I had a look at par, which I missed. But, overall, it was just a struggle to get off the tee the whole day. There was another hole. It was a short par 4. There's water. It's almost a similar situation as the first hole. There's water, 220 yards on the right-hand side down. So I'm like, I'm going to take something, maybe it was 240 yards. I'm going to take a 5-wood, and I'm just going to hit it a little left. I'm going to make sure that I'm safe and short of the water, even if I push it right. Well, I pull it. I hit a tree that's 75 yards from the tee box. It drops straight down there. Now I'm way out of position. I chip it up. I end up next to another guy's drive that I'm playing with. He doesn't even realize I did that. He goes up, he hits my ball instead of his into the water. And I have to tell him he hit the wrong ball. And he's like, hey, here's another ball to replace that. I'm like, all right, man, thanks a ton. But it was just, it was a tough day out there off the tee. Overall, though, I think, let's see here. I shot 44 on the front, which I was pretty happy with. I think the one, I had, that double bogey on one, and then I made double on a short par 3, number 8 as well, but had a string of pars in the middle of the front there that was really good. Putting was for the most part pretty good. That double on the par 3 was a 3 putt. The back 9, I started getting a little tired. Just literally, I was just like, man, this is a lot of walking. I haven't done that a long time. I was hanging in there as much mentally as I could. I just had to really take it as it came and see what I had. The good news is I went in with no expectations. I just wanted to do what I knew how to do. I think the tee shot stuff was a lot of ball position mishaps. I did ground a couple drives, as you were talking about. Hit a worm burner down there 50 yards, and I had 1 or 2 of those. So that was disappointing. But it also just reminded me hey man, you don't know this course. You didn't really know where the edge of the woods was on that tee shot because it was kind of around a bend.
Yeah.
You didn't really know what the back to front slope on this green was.
This course knowledge is so important. I mean, going back to our strategy discussion from last episode, we couldn't even have that strategy discussion without actually knowing the intricacies. Going through it with a GPS is helpful, but you're never going to really know all the different spots that you can or can't be in unless you've walked the course. And that's why these pros walk these courses for the couple days leading up to a tournament. So for you or any recreational golfer, frankly, who's trying a course for the first time, just set the expectation at the right level. I think that's what you described doing, right? Is that you just knew that you weren't going to necessarily go out there and shoot your best. And I think that's important because what you don't want to do is lose your cool when, you're not playing your best golf on a course you've never played before.
It's a great point. And it's actually, as I was talking earlier about not having a handicap goal this year, like that's actually a big reason why too. I think I forgot to say it at that moment, but if I'm playing 15 new courses this year, I'm probably not going to shoot my best rounds that often this year, right? Like there might be some good ones as I, unlock my game. But I think with this course, really, aside from seeing where my game was, it was seeing which holes do I understand here? Which holes have I, do I have the key for, so to speak? Which ones am I still trying to unlock? I think that was, when we talked about Torrey, I started playing really well there when I knew in my bones that I can make par on every hole. I know how to make par on every hole. It changes how you approach the entire round, and you feel more comfortable moving on from that bad hole or that bad shot when you go, I can still par this hole even when my game's not its best. Or maybe I just need one shot that's a little better than I normally hit it on this one in order to make par and even make birdie potentially.
Yeah, I just having that mental library of being, because I think similarly for me on Rustic, right? I probably have parred now every hole at that course. So trying to go back and log back and saying, and a good way maybe of resetting is to say, if you're the kind of golfer who plays the same course over and over again, trying to keep a good mental library of holes that give you trouble, and let's say the one time you play at 7, for instance. When I played this last time and I parred it, I think the biggest reason why I parred that was because I hit it to the center of the green instead of trying to go for the pin. That was just so. Sounds obvious, but it's just what you're playing it, guys. You want to go for it because it doesn't seem that difficult, but it's a sucker pin every single time. So I think the next time I play 7, if let's say I don't play 6 very well and I need a reset on 7, which is a hard hole to reset on, go back to that mental memory of what did I do the last time that I parred this hole? And if you have a journal and you can journal it and read that before you play around, I think that would actually be very, very helpful, and maybe an exercise I might try to start to do, because unlike you, I'm probably going to play Rustic for 50+% of my rounds this season.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful in terms of getting to the next level, having a stability there, right? When you can remove the variable of the course, you can remove other variables from your game to truly understand what is going to move the needle for you and not. So I love that approach. I'm going to try to play Duke again tomorrow to continue to understand where my game is at and see, where did I get lucky versus where can I get a little better here? The 17th hole, I just crushed this drive. I finally got a hold of a drive. I was so excited. I hit a great approach shot in. But one of the things I learned about this course, and this is probably true of Robert Trent Jones Sr. designs in general, is it has this sort of tongue on the front of the green and then 2 bunkers on each side. And there were a lot of pins that were in that front tongue, which leaves you maybe, 10 yards wide of a landing zone. And I just missed it. It bounced into this bunker to the side. The pin was in the front. I hit a couple shots back and forth, bunker to bunker. Apparently I was rusty on my bunker shots too. But I really think this was one where it was I was kind of screwed in that position anyway. And I just needed to hit it to the fat part of the green from the bunker and then try to 2-putt from there and take my medicine. I think that's where I really need to understand where not to hit it on this course on a couple of those. And so that was a really valuable lesson.
Yeah, no, that's interesting that if you played that back differently, you would have just changed your bunker shot. But your approach shot seems like that was probably the mistake that led to...
That's 100% correct.
Yeah, so you should have just taken more club and gone long.
I should have, yeah. Yeah, I should have probably tried to hit half a club longer.
Lesson there is just always aim for the fattest part of the green, right? Even if you're not the best putter, you're probably a better putter than you are an iron player. Let's be honest, most people out there, right, who are recreational golfers who are trying to get from a double-digit handicap to a single-digit handicap, you're probably better off with a putter in your hand than even an 8 iron or a 9 iron.
It's so true, because even there was another hole, it was 11, that this was a par 5, and I hit actually a really great drive on this one too, and a smart layup, and I was in good position. And for whatever reason, thinking that I've been to the range once in the last 5 months, I'm going to hit a partial wedge to the back part of this green and, stuff it and make birdie. Like, didn't work. I hit it over the green by like 10 yards. And then I was short-sighted coming back down. And the green was going downhill from back to front toward water. I'm like, I am not in a good position here. This was a really bad decision. I should just hit to the fat part of the green, especially right now. I think that's one of the things I got better at getting, as I got into single digit territory, was figuring out how to do that distance control well. But I'm not going to have that today. So anyway, long story short. So if you assume a triple on the 17th hole, because I just picked up after going back and forth bunker to bunker, I shot a 48 on the back. So that's a 44, 48 for a 92. So that's a 16 differential for that round. So the question of what does it look for a 5-month hiatus for a 5 handicap? It looks like a 16, 15 handicap. So we're basically playing the same point. We're playing the same golf right now, Nick.
Except I'm excited about it, and you're quoting the worst round of your life.
No. Actually, I was looking at it, and it was about the same as when I took a couple months off after my son was born, and then went and played Torrey for the first time. I think it was like a 15.7 or 15.8 at that point too. So we'll see how fast I bounce back. That was a little shorter hiatus than what I've been on here. But like I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to play there tomorrow morning. I'm going to walk around the same time. It's kind of my morning time routine. So I'm going to try and see what was a result of me and my rust. What was a result of me not knowing the course? What can I learn this time around? And I'm excited about it. That's great.
So, I actually want to go back really quickly to what you said about walking, and like when you started to feel, the fatigue element of walking at some point. Having played golf with you for so long, you're usually someone who's really in tune with what your body needs. And so you're always packing protein bars, water, Gatorade, whatever it is that you feel like you need to get through those 18 holes. What didn't you do right this time? Maybe it was rust. It was just general physical rust of being able to walk, the span of 18 holes. But what would you have done differently from a physical perspective that would have maybe helped with what sounded like some fatigue, probably brought on from a combination of dehydration and calorie deficit from playing, whatever was 12 holes prior to feeling that way?
Yeah, I was maybe a little hungry. I don't think I was dehydrated at all. I'm pretty knowledgeable about like where my hydration levels are entering around and, through around. I think for me, it was more about just my body not being in the shape to carry golf clubs and pick it up and set it down. For the longest time, this is probably the longest I can remember after a round that my shins, like the muscles on the front of my shins were sore. It was like 4 days later, they were still sore. So I think it's just my body was not prepared to carry a bag for 20, I don't know how much my bag weighs, 20 pounds or whatever for that many hours. And you're walking up hills, you're walking down hills, you're just working your muscles in a different way. Maybe if I bought like one of those weighted vests and rucked around, as they call it, maybe that would have helped in the meantime. But usually that doesn't faze me. I'll probably be fine tomorrow. Maybe I'll still be a little tired and a little sore, but I think my body's just figuring out like, oh yeah, this is what we do again. There's probably an element, maybe if I did more cardio, that my body would have moved more oxygen to the muscles and would have kept them going a little better through that part of the round. But for the most part, I'm not that worried about it. Maybe that was part of why I struggled on the stretch in the last 5 holes with that triple or the 2 triples. But for the most part, it was more just, I think it was just, I was out of shape for that particular activity. And I think I'll get back there quickly. So we'll see tomorrow.
Was there any mental fatigue that played in? I find myself sometimes just being mentally fatigued with the game. If it's not going the way you want, or you're not going to shoot a score, it's really hard to remain locked in over the course of 18. I was thinking about this after my second round of my golf trip, being like, should I just try to play 2 9s as opposed to 18 holes? And what I really mean by that is just like try to compartmentalize each, the round even further than thinking about it over 18 holes. So kind of it's almost similar to what I did at Torrey, and what worked for me was being like, okay, the front 9 sucked. I'm just going to move on with my life, and I'm going to shoot a 40 on the back 9. That's just what I'm going to do. and ended up playing really, really well. I did not do that on the second round. I just sort of was there going through the motions, just trying to play, play through it. So I think the mental fatigue element can really come into it if you don't compartmentalize either 9x9, group of holes by group of holes. I know pros do that. They will go group of hole by group of hole and, or even hole by hole in some respects. So, I mean, how do you keep the mental strength up?
I like your idea of going 9x9. I've heard a lot of people say 3-hole clusters, let's do well over the next 3 holes, right? You get 6 3-hole rounds and 1 full 18-hole round of golf, right? That's a little different than what I was facing here. I don't really worry about that. I really try to focus on shot by shot, or I don't know, hole by hole a little bit, but primarily shot by shot. I think for me, the mental fatigue was more going through and remembering my processes as I go through the round, right? Just assessing the lie, the wind, the, approach area, all that. I have a hard time understanding if it's that I was getting tired because there were so many new elements, because I'm in a very different area and there's very different scenery and the landing points and all that. All that was just very different. Or if I was actually just getting tired because I hadn't done that much before. But I don't have a lot of issues focusing on something on and off like that for 4 hours straight or for extended periods of time. I like to get into things where I'm really digging into something and you can kind of go in and out. I'm not talking about being intensely focused for 4 hours. I'm not intensely focused for 4 hours straight when I'm playing golf, right? You have the walks in between shots that I think is really helpful. And it's a big reason why I love walking. You have these built-in breaks, helps you find a rhythm a little bit more. So I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe tomorrow I'll tell you if it's that I'm still getting tired, and maybe I'll have a better idea of whether it's because of the amount of information I'm trying to process, or if it's because I have limited compute, so to speak.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear how that one goes. I'll probably look to play another round, maybe once over the next 2 weeks or so, to see when I can get out with work and family and other obligations I have going on. But I think what I'm going to probably try to take away from this conversation is I really like this idea around journaling specific holes and calling back memories of specific instances on specific holes. So I really want to do that for Rustic and see if that can translate on the course from a mental perspective. Because unlike you, I definitely get distracted on the course. I've actually thought about trying to different ways to try to just stay locked in, because I find it very difficult to do that. Maybe it's music, maybe it's compartmentalizing, maybe it's something to do with, like I'm mentioning, pulling back from the memory bank of, the last time I played well on this hole. So I'm going to try with the journal, and then, I'll try some other strategies while I'm out there as well and see what works.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is helpful that I've noticed for me is just trying to do the same activities at the same time. So your brain expects to be doing those activities. So I've always, when I was really trying to get good, I was going to the range on, let's say, Tuesday and Thursday. I was trying to do that 2 days a week. And then I would play on Saturday mornings. And I would, I'd go to the gym on Monday and Wednesday, and I'd take Friday as a rest day, and I'd play on Saturday morning, right? So I'd kind of have this routine, and that made it easier so that when I got to the course on Saturday, I felt like I'd put in the work during the week, but also my brain knew, hey, you're going to play a round of golf at roughly 8 a.m. on Saturday. This is your morning routine. This is what you do the night before. So you get up and you're ready to go and you're prepared to execute there, and you have less of the background stuff in mind, right? Because your brain just knows, okay, this is the time we do this thing. In the same way that hey, you start work at 9 a.m. every day or whatever. Okay, you start to get in work mode. Sometimes it's a little tougher than others, but for the most part, you're gonna do work at 9 in the morning. Try to get your brain to expect to do golf activities at certain times during the week or during the day.
Yeah, it's actually a great way to form good habits, right? Is to have it sort of cascade off of other things that are either other habits you've already formed or things that are just even out of your control. The simplest example is an alarm ringing and you wake up and you brush your teeth and you get ready for the day, right? It's just a cascading of one habit after another that come in obvious succession. So if you can prepare yourself in that way for a round of golf or even a shot, right? That's really what a pre-shot routine is creating good habits by having cascading, sort of a habit waterfall of like one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. That's a good way to sort of just try to create a little bit more rhythm and find your groove if you feel like you've lost it over the course of a round. That's I think that's why we haven't talked much on this podcast about pre-shot routines, but that's something I really need to work on and improving. I actually think back to like other sports I played competitively growing up, like tennis or basketball, and it's actually very common. Like I was probably the best, if not one of the best free throw shooters on my basketball team in high school because I always had the same routine every single time and I would not deviate from it. And that's the same thing with serving. My serving percentage wasn't the greatest in high school, but it was still barely good to make the team. But it would have been a lot worse if I didn't have the same routine every single time before hitting a serve. So like, it's really important in every sport, I think, to create those like mini routines to create a better habit structure.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. We should do a deep dive on that because I think that's something that I think is one of the big keys to my success as well. I feel like I've been saying that a lot. There might be a lot of keys to my success, but pre-shot routine, there's a very specific story that I want to get into as we talk about that sometime.
Hey, so, if it was simple, then everyone would be a 5 handicap, Ryan.
Exactly. Everybody would be scratch or on tour or whatever, right? So cool. So you're going to try and get out at some point in the next couple of weeks. Anything else? What else are you going to work on? What's your plan?
Well, like I said, I think journaling and I think trying to figure out ways to just keep myself in the game. I think both the Rustic round and the Torrey round and even the Del Mar round for a large stretch of it was easy to just sort of get lost in the round. Like if I think back mentally to probably the Del Mar round is the most obvious. There are holes that are just totally blackouts for me. Like I don't even remember what happened. And I think that's wrong. Like I think when you're playing an intentional game, you should really be mindful of what it is that you're doing at every point in that game. And so those blackouts are not necessarily a function of me just being forgetful. It's more a function of me like just probably not caring what I did during those holes, and therefore I just didn't log them in my memory.
Yeah. So what about practice or any prep work that you're going to do for your next round?
I think I'm still going to work on the things that I've been working on in the range. I think my tee shots certainly need work. I'm certainly focused on my ball striking because I feel like that left me. I've been working with an instructor, and so I have a good sort of drill / feeling that I'm trying to anchor in with my drives. And I actually feel like it was very helpful to me over the course of this golf trip. So I think trying to really work on that and ingratiate that into my tee shots, I think will be very, very helpful. The tricky thing with feels and swing thoughts is that they have an expiration date. So who knows how long this one will last, but I think trying to just at least work on those aspects of my game in the 2 hours I've allocated. And then, obviously short game, continue to just chip away at that, no pun intended, and get better at, recoveries. But yeah, I know, dad jokes, right? I think the chipping has certainly improved. I've gotten a lot more confident around my chipping and my bunker play and just how aggressively I need to swing or not swing. A big thing for me there, like shockingly enough, has been I've just been strangling the club. And I didn't get this from a pro, but I got this from someone who is a 4 handicap who has a great short game. And he was like, I think you're just strangling, because every time you do the exact same thing, so it's the exact same problem. And if I can just looking at you, you're so tense over a 15-yard chip, like it's not that big of a deal. Like just stop strangling the club so hard. And like as a result of that, it's just a lot more fluid. And so I take the club back a lot more fluid. I'm not like taking it back very sharply and then trying to go through very sharply. It's like take it back slow and then follow through and actually like turn. And because the grip is softer, it forces me to turn, because then how else am I going to take momentum to the ball? Right. So that's sort of what I've been working on with my chipping.
Very nice. Very nice. Cool. Well, what do I have going on? I'm just going to continue the workouts. I think yoga has been really helpful for my hip situation. Lower leg weight workouts have been great. I'm just doing a lot of like single leg stuff, like single leg deadlifts and split squats, which, by the way, I finally getting around to watching season 3 of Full Swing and watching Rory doing split squats on the episode where they talk about him and Shane play together at Zurich last year. And I was like, man, look how stable he is as he's doing these with like 3 times as much weight as I do it with. So now I have something, more specific to aspire to with my workouts, which is great. I'm going to go talk to the doctor on Tuesday, probably just get a referral for PT or something like that. Just kind of have a conversation about what I think is going on with my hip and what's working. But I really want to accelerate the the healing of or resolution of this. I don't even know how to describe it because I'm not a doctor of hips. And then, I got that round at Duke tomorrow. So that should be a good second data point, help understand where I'm at. Probably not going to play next weekend. Parents are coming into town, though I did find a golf simulator place that looks really cool here called State of Golf in downtown Durham. And that looks like a nice place to take the family and hang out and not have to worry about.
Still get some balls in, yeah.
Yeah, still get some balls in. I'd like to go play around with my dad, but now he doesn't have to bring his clubs, or we don't have to rent clubs or anything like that, right? So should be something we can get around to. And then they seem to do a simulator golf league there as well. It's
awesome.
ending right now,
great.
but it's like a winter thing. So now I'm like, do I do that next year, or is there something else coming up? I've never considered a simulator golf league, but that seems fun. They have both Torrey North and South there. So
I would say I did briefly in New York when I used to live there, and I would say that it is great for the long game, not great for the short game. So don't take anything. Yeah, do not take anything with you from the short game there. So I think that's something that I need to go and do, actually, and something I'll probably plan to do over the next week or two, is actually go to a simulator and get more data around my golf swings, because I have not done that in probably, I think, 3 years. So
it never hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I again, going back to what I was saying about was there a reason I'm not carrying it as much at Torrey? My swing speed just might not be where it was 3 years ago. And my carry distances are just not as dialed in as I thought they were, because I'm just, I'm 3 years older. I'm probably swinging it a little bit less. Like, it just happens. I mean, it's stuff that I'm working on on a workout perspective as well. Like, I'm only 35. There's no reason that I should be seeing a huge slowdown in my swing speed. I think it probably has something to do a little bit more with my efficiency than my swing speed. But even still, I mean, having the data to support that theory would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It never hurts. I wouldn't get too wrapped up in it at this point, but I think it's helpful. I guess from the distance thing, I think it'll be helpful. But if I were you, I don't know a lot of my numbers other than my distances. Like, I don't know my spin rates or anything like that, other than that I'm a high spin player.
Oh yeah. No. No. Sorry. I'm really focused on the carries, but I'm also kind of focused on, I think the only other number I'd probably be focused on is swing speed and efficiency. Just am I swinging the club as fast as I used to? Because I kind of generally knew where my swing speeds were prior to like 3 years ago, or am I just not hitting the ball as squarely as I should be? And I think that's really all I really do care about, and that will translate into the carry numbers. Right. So are my carry numbers down because I'm swinging it not as fast, or because I'm just not hitting it as pure as I used to? And I think that's like an important thing to just know what to work on. Is it like more the physical element, or is it the practice element? Which I think it's probably, if I had to guess, probably a little bit of both. But I think just having a little bit more clear picture of like where those are relative to where I was 3 years ago might just be helpful, and just what to practice in my game.
Yep. Makes a ton of sense. Cool. Well, I'm eager to hear when your next round is and hear all about it, and I'll keep you posted on mine. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Low Point. If you like what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. If you want to learn more, you can check us out at thelowpointpod.com. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until next time, be kind to yourself and enjoy the process.